Every legendary weapon of the West explained. Zeus's thunderbolt. The Master Bolt wasn't just lightning, it was annihilation in physical form. Forged by the Cyclops during the Titanomachy, Zeus's thunderbolt could level entire mountain ranges with a single strike. Ancient texts describe it as a triple-pronged spear of raw cosmic energy, capable of incinerating gods themselves. When Zeus hurled it against the Titans, it didn't just kill, it erased. The weapon became so synonymous with divine authority that to even possess it meant you controlled the heavens. Trident of Poseidon. Zeus's reign of the sky was only 1/3 of creation. While Zeus ruled above, his brother Poseidon wielded the Earthshaker. The trident wasn't designed for combat. It was a geological weapon. 3 prongs, also forged by the Cyclops, each capable of triggering tsunamis, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions with a single strike into the ocean floor. Ancient sailors believed Poseidon's rage could split islands in half. The weapon could command every creature in the sea, bend water to his will, and according to ancient Greek author Homer, even shift tectonic plates. Poseidon once struck the ground so hard during a dispute with Athena that he created an entirely new saltwater spring. Mjolnir. While the Greeks relied on the Cyclops, the gods of the north turned to a different kind of master smith. In the depths beneath Svartalfheim, the dwarf brothers Brokkr and Eitri were creating the ultimate weapon, but Loki, disguised as a fly, bit Brokkr's eyelid mid-forge, causing him to stop working the bellows too early. The result was Mjolnir, a hammer with a handle too short for proper two-handed wielding. Yet this defect became legendary. The hammer could level mountains, summon lightning storms, and most importantly, always return to Thor's hand after being thrown. It was so heavy that only those deemed worthy could even lift it. The weapon could shrink down to fit inside Thor's shirt, ready to be drawn at any moment. And when it was stolen, Thor would go to insane lengths to get it back. The giant Thrym once managed to steal Mjolnir and bury it 8 miles underground, demanding the goddess Freya as payment for its return. Thor's solution? Dress himself as Freya in a wedding gown and veil. During the wedding feast, Thrym grew suspicious when the bride devoured an entire ox and drank 3 barrels of mead. But when he placed Mjolnir on the bride's lap to sanctify the marriage, as was tradition, Thor's hand closed around the handle. Every giant in that hall died within seconds. The wedding became a bloodbath. That's the thing about Mjolnir. You could steal it, hide it, bury it in the earth's core, but the moment Thor touched it again, you were already dead. Gungnir. Mjolnir wasn't the only weapon crafted by dwarves for the gods. Gungnir, the spear of Odin, was crafted by the same dwarves, the sons of Ivaldi. Carved from the wood of Yggdrasil itself and inscribed with runes of power, this weapon had one terrifying ability. It never missed its target. Ever. Odin used Gungnir to start the very first war in the cosmos, hurling it over the ranks of the Vanir gods to initiate the Aesir-Vanir conflict. In Norse tradition, throwing a spear over an enemy army was a ritual dedication to Odin, a promise that all who fell belonged to him. The spear didn't just kill, it declared ownership of souls. Gae Bolg. While Norse gods wielded hammers and spears, the Celtic heroes fought with something far more gruesome. Gae Bolg translates to spear of mortal pain, and the name doesn't exaggerate. This was the signature weapon of Cuchulainn, the Hound of Ulster, and its design was nightmare fuel. The spear was made from the bone of a sea monster, and when it entered a victim's body, it sprouted 30 barbs that tore through internal organs. There was no defense, no armor thick enough. The only way to remove it was through surgery that would kill the victim anyway. But here's the catch. It couldn't be thrown by hand. Gae Bolg had to be launched using the foot, a technique Cuchulainn mastered under the warrior woman Skahawk. One thrust, and your enemy was already dead. They just didn't know it yet. But the weapon's most tragic moment came during Cuchulainn's duel with Fair Di-Ad, his foster brother and closest friend. For 3 days, they fought at a river ford, evenly matched, neither wanting to kill the other. Cuchulainn held back, refusing to use Gae Bolg because he knew what it would do. But on the fourth day, exhausted and desperate, with fair Diad gaining the upper hand, Cuchulainn had no choice. He called for the spear, he launched it with his foot, and he watched 30 barbs explode through his brother's chest from the inside. Fair Diad died in his arms. Gae Bolg wasn't just a weapon of war, it became a symbol of tragic necessity, the choice between killing the one you love or dying yourself. Excalibur. Speaking of legendary warriors and their blades, everyone gets this wrong. Excalibur was not the sword in the stone. That blade was destroyed in Arthur's first real battle. The true Excalibur came later, given to Arthur by the Lady of the Lake after he proved himself as king. The sword itself could cut through any armor, sure, but the real power was in the scabbard. As long as Arthur wore it, he could not bleed, no matter how severe the wound. This made him effectively immortal on the battlefield. The scabbard was later stolen by Morgan Le Fay, and without it, Arthur became vulnerable, leading directly to his downfall at Camlan. But the legend doesn't end with Arthur's death. As he lay dying, Arthur commanded his last loyal knight, Sir Bedivere, to return Excalibur to the lake. Bedivere couldn't do it. Twice he went to the water's edge, looked at the jeweled hilt, and hid the sword instead, lying to Arthur about throwing it. Arthur knew. He asked what Bedivere saw. When the knight couldn't answer, Arthur ordered him again. On the third attempt, Bedivere finally hurled Excalibur into the lake. A hand rose from the water, just a hand, nothing else, caught the sword by the hilt, brandished it 3 times, and pulled it beneath the surface forever. The weapon that made a king return to the realm it came from. Clarent. Not every legendary blade represented honor. Clarent was Excalibur's dark reflection. This was Arthur's ceremonial sword, used for knighting ceremonies and royal decrees, never meant for war. It represented peace, law, and the rightful order of Camelot, and Mordred stole it. Arthur's treacherous son took the blade that symbolized legitimacy and turned it into a weapon of rebellion. At the Battle of Camlan, father and son met in single combat. Arthur wielded Excalibur, the sword of righteousness. Mordred wielded Clarent, the stolen blade of betrayal. When Arthur drove Excalibur through Mordred's chest, Mordred pulled himself along the blade close enough to swing Clarent one final time. The blow shattered Arthur's skull. Both fell. One sword represented everything a king should be. The other represented what happens when that order is violated from within. Excalibur was given freely by the Lady of the Lake. Clarent was taken by treachery. The contrast between them defined the end of Camelot itself. The harp. Blades weren't always tools of honor or betrayal. Some were instruments of cosmic violence. The harp was a sickle sword forged from adamantine, an indestructible divine metal. It first appeared in the hands of Kronos when he used it to castrate his father Uranus, literally severing the sky from the earth and ending the reign of the primordial gods. Centuries later, the same weapon was given to Perseus by Zeus for one purpose: to kill Medusa. The harp's curved blade could decapitate in a single stroke, and its indestructible edge meant even Medusa's armored scales couldn't stop it. 2 generations, 2 impossible kills, one weapon that shaped the cosmos. Aegis. Sometimes, the deadliest weapons weren't meant to kill, they were meant to terrify. The aegis wasn't just armor, it was psychological warfare made manifest. Originally belonging to Zeus, then gifted to Athena, the aegis was a shield or breastplate bearing the severed head of Medusa. When wielded in battle, it didn't need to touch enemies. Just seeing it would induce supernatural terror. Grown warriors would flee, weapons would fall from trembling hands, and entire armies would rout before a single blow was struck. Some legends say it could still turn men to stone, others claim it summoned storms. Either way, the aegis won battles before they even began. Fraggarok. Terror wasn't the only way to defeat an enemy. Some blades forced truth from lying tongues. Fraggarok, the Answerer, was the sword of Manannán mac Lir, Irish god of the sea. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a magical lie detector with lethal consequences. Any enemy who had this blade held to their throat could not lie. They would be compelled to answer any question truthfully, their will completely overridden. But Fragga had a second power. It could command the wind itself, cutting through any armor and shield as if they were paper. In Irish myth, no one could withstand Fragga because it didn't just defeat your body, it defeated your ability to deceive. Durandal. This sword refused to break, even when its wielder demanded it. Durandal was the indestructible blade of Roland, Charlemagne's greatest paladin. Forged with holy relics embedded in its hilt, a tooth of St. Peter, blood of St. Basil, hair of St. Denis, the sword was unbreakable by design. During the Battle of Roncesvalles Pass, as Roland lay dying, he tried to destroy Durandal by striking it against a mountain, refusing to let it fall into enemy hands. He swung with all his remaining strength. The sword didn't break. The mountain did. The impact created a massive breach in the rock face, still visible today and known as Roland's Breach. The blade supposedly still rests at the bottom of a cliff, waiting. The Spear of Longinus. This weapon claimed to grant more than strength. It promised dominion over the entire world. The Spear of Longinus, also called the Spear of Destiny, is the weapon that pierced Christ's side during the crucifixion. But the legend that grew around it was far more ambitious than its biblical origin. Medieval lore claimed that whoever possessed the spear could not be defeated in battle, that it granted its wielder the power to rule the world. Charlemagne carried it through 47 successful campaigns. Constantine the Great won his empire with it. Even Napoleon sought it before his coronation. But the spear came with a curse. The moment a ruler dropped it or lost possession, death followed swiftly. Frederick Barbarossa, Holy Roman Emperor, accidentally dropped the spear while crossing a river in 1190. He drowned minutes later. The legend persisted into the 20th century. Adolf Hitler obsessed over the spear, seizing it after annexing Austria in 1938 and keeping it in Nuremberg. On April 30, 1945, American forces captured the spear. That same day, Hitler died in his bunker. Coincidence? Probably. But the legend of the Spear of Destiny has always been about belief. The idea that fate itself could be held in your hands, and that losing grip meant losing everything. Whether divine artifact or psychological weapon, the Spear of Longinus proved that sometimes the most powerful thing about a weapon isn't what it can do. It's what people believe it can do. These 12 weapons didn't just arm gods and heroes, they shaped civilizations, started wars, and became symbols of power that outlasted empires. Each one tells us what the cultures that created them valued most: dominion, truth, protection, or sheer unstoppable force. If you want more deep dives into mythology's darkest corners, hit that like and subscribe button. We're just getting started.